Were interrogated on July 15th, 2018,
I was.
and you would recognize a copy of a transcript of that interrogation.
I would.
Is this that interrogation?
Your Honor, can I see the document before my witness sees it?
Please.
Absolutely.
Counsel.
I'm sorry, what's unmarked?
Oh, yes. Mr. Ryder, this is that interrogation.
Yeah, this looks like it.
Okay, I'll take that from you. Now, nowhere in these 17 pages do you mention anything to Detective Chesney about Corbin showing up to the campsite, do you?
That's right. They never asked me anything about Corbin.
So, if you believe that Corbin Dallas had taken Parker or done something with Parker, you didn't mention that.
Like I said, they never asked me anything about Corbin. They just asked me questions about insurance and things we did earlier that day.
Well, I'll talk about Corbin Dallas more in a moment, but you said on direct examination that you were thankful to Corbin for taking care of Parker while you were in prison, yes?
I was. Parker's mom died when she was 2, and my parents died when she was 3. So, with me in prison, without Corbin, I mean, Parker would have just been in the system. I couldn't have been more thankful to him.
Now, you also just testified that they didn't ask you anything about Corbin, correct?
Not anything about Corbin from July 14th to 15th, no.
Now, although you don't mention anything about Corbin showing up to the campsite, you do actually say that Corbin is a waste of oxygen, and he cared more about where the next drink or high was coming from than Parker.
That's right. Corbin, ever since I got out from prison, he went out drinking almost every night, and he left empty bottles of alcohol and food just all over his place, and Parker could have tripped on any of it, and I just saw that he was really being a horrible parent to her.
And you said you were thankful for that, right?
I was thankful for him taking custody before I went to prison.
All right. So, once again, if you believe that Corbin Dallas had done something with Parker, don't you think that you should have mentioned that in your interrogation the day after?
One thing I've definitely learned from my run-ins with law enforcement is to answer what's asked of me, and I was never asked of anything related to Corbin about that day.
I'd like to talk a little bit about that day, Mr. Ryder. On July 14, 2018, you took Parker camping, yes?
That's right.
And you went hiking on Lake Rome Loop.
Yeah, we did.
And somewhere, at some point along your hike, Parker decided that she didn't want to carry on hiking any longer.
Yeah, like I said, I noticed she was getting tired and grumpy, and we had a bit of a fight, so that's why I decided to head back to our campsite.
But you encouraged her to carry on hiking, right?
That's right.
She refused, however.
That's right.
In fact, she insisted that you go back immediately to the campsite.
She did. I figured I'd give her one last push to see if we could go a little further, but she was uncomfortable, so we headed back.
Like you said, you tried to give her one last push. You continued to try to encourage her.
That's right. I did continue to encourage her. Her doctors told me that patients with type 1 brittle bone disease can grow out of it, and I was hoping that Parker could be one of those kids.
But once again, she continued to argue with you, and she even asked you why you couldn't just let her be like Corbin did.
That's right. She said that.
She asked you why you couldn't be more like Corbin.
Yeah, she said that. Like I said, Parker loved Corbin.
And in the heat of your argument, she even screamed at you that she hated you for coming back into her life, didn't she?
Yeah, she said that. I mean, I don't know what parent doesn't fight with their 12-year-old from time to time.
After she screamed that she hated you for coming back into your life, that's when you grabbed the hiking stick from her, isn't it?
That's not why I grabbed the hiking stick.
But after she screamed that, that's when you grabbed it, isn't it?
She was waving the hiking stick around at head level, and I was worried she was going to hit me or a passing hiker, so yeah, I took the hiking stick.
Now, I'd like to talk a little bit about later that evening. You said you went to the cafe.
That's right, to get a signal.
And at that cafe, you scribbled some notes on a napkin.
Yeah, I did.
Would you recognize a copy of that napkin?
I would.
Permission to approach opposing counsel and the witness with Exhibit 26. Would Your Honor like to put this down?
Do you have an extra?
Yes. I've just handed you a copy of that napkin, Mr. Ryder, yes?
Yes.
And is it a fair and accurate depiction of that napkin?
Yeah, it is.
Your Honor, I ask that Exhibit 26 be entered into evidence.
Any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
So moved.
Your Honor, I also like to ask permission to show a demonstrative of Exhibit 26 to the jury.
That's fine.
May I move, Your Honor?
You may move.
Now, Mr. Ryder, let's talk about this napkin for a brief moment. On here, there's a section that says 911, yes?
Yeah.
And underneath that, you wrote, "I'm so sorry this happened. It was all my fault." And then it's crossed out, yes?
Well, yeah, I wrote that, but can I explain why I was writing it?
Well, Mr. Ryder, please just answer my questions. You also wrote underneath that, "I was just so angry," and that's also crossed out.
Yes, I wrote that, but can I explain why?
In just a moment. You also wrote, "I didn't mean to do it," and then that's crossed out.
When I was in prison, I was under a lot of stress, and I worked with a counselor a lot, and one of the stress management techniques we came up with is whenever I was feeling angry or anxious, I would write down my feelings to visualize them and get a better idea of what I was thinking and to help relieve some of that stress. And that's what I was doing here.
And you wrote that underneath a section titled 911.
Yeah, I was panicking. It was an emergency, so yes.
So finally, underneath this section, you wrote "missing," and you circled that.
Yeah, finally I realized that Parker was missing and I needed to go back, so that's what I did.
One final question about this napkin. Nowhere on it does it mention anything about Corbin Dallas, does it?
No, it doesn't.
Or Corbin Dallas being at the campsite, does it?
No.
So none of those emotions were on your mind.
No.
Now, you also had an insurance policy on Parker, didn't you?
Yeah.
And that was in the total of $10,000?
When I got out of prison, it was $10,000, but I later increased it to $200,000.
You increased it actually on July 15th, 2018, yes?
I filled out the life insurance policy increase the day before, but when I took out my phone in the cafe the morning of the 15th, it was the last window open, so I just hit submit and then checked the messages.
So while you were panicked trying to find Parker, you had the wherewithal to submit your life insurance policy increase quote that would bring the total up to $200,000.
Like I said, just the confirmation page was the last thing up my phone, so I just hit submit and then open another app.
I pass the witness. Would opposing counsel like me to take down the demonstrative?
Yes, please.